Ooh, hello. I haven't heard that theme in a while.
It has been a minute.
It has been a heck of a minute, and it's been actually almost a month. It has been a month since we have had a show. This is Popped. I am Keith. That is Travis over there.
Hello.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/popshow, Twitter at popshow. We even have an Instagram now at popshow. I still do that occasionally. I think I'm doing that more than a show at this point. Yeah, it has been quite some time, and it's good to be back. It's been a little while. We actually, Sarah and I were just at a networking event here locally in Norfolk, and people were talking about the show. They're like, you guys need to come back. You need to do something. I was like, well, funny you say that because we're doing a show tonight. And some people were saying how they want to be on. A buddy of ours, George, was saying how he wants to come on the show and talk about how good the DuckTales show is and how it's better than the original 80s version. And I totally echo that. If you're not watching the 80s DuckTales, you should be. It is a great show. I think the season finale is coming up soon. And the preview they have shown for it at ComicCon, Gyro Gearloose creates a little invention, like a little pill, so we can understand Donald Duck. And so the intelligible voice of Donald Duck is done by Don Cheadle. And they like when they cut the Don Cheadle talking about the role, it says Thanos Survivor. I lost it. I was like, oh my god, I love how they're just playing into that. So,
that's awesome.
Spoilers, he survives from Thanos. So, yeah. Man, it has been a while. Travis, how you been, man? What have you been up to?
Well, let's see here. Been at the Narrow a few times recently. Yeah. Went for Black Dynamite a couple Fridays ago.
Okay.
Absolutely fantastic showing. I actually got Michael Jai White, Black Dynamite himself, to follow me on Twitter.
Oh, look at you! You're doing quite well on the Twitter machine.
That was a victory lap in the backyard I don't have.
Hey, take whatever backyard you got, man.
And then let's see here, Batman '89. That was last Friday. Did that, and then I've kind of been doing it old school lately. A lot of throwback gaming.
Okay.
Been playing a lot of my Game Boy Advance stuff, and let's see here. Oh, Friday the 13th, Shudder, which some of our listeners may have heard of by now. If not, you've clearly not been listening to me on Twitter. But
well, what is your Twitter handle so they can listen to you?
It is @PoppedCrawDaddy.
All right, there we go.
Spelled just like it sounds. But yeah, so Shudder is an Amazon-owned horror movie streaming service.
Okay.
And they brought back one of the great pieces of my childhood, Mr. Joe Bob Briggs, to host a 24-hour horror marathon on Friday the 13th.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there were some streaming issues, but fortunately for those of us who were not subscribed through a platform that they allowed the live stream through, hint, hint, wink, wink, Shudder, maybe don't do that next time. They have released all of the movies individually on their platform with the bumpers where they cut away to and from Joe Bob. So you still get all the fun information that he's got.
Okay.
And the great stories that he knows about all these films. And you get to enjoy stuff like Reanimator, Basket Case, and
the old classics.
all kinds of lunacy.
Okay.
That he couldn't show back in the TNT days because it was just too raw for that network to not have to chop it up too much.
Streaming has been nice as far as censorship goes. We think I kind of pushed the limits a little bit because, what was it? The DC streaming service just aired their trailer for Titans.
Yes.
And they were all about saying F Batman. That was their big old thing there. And so, yeah, streaming services kind of opened up censorship. And so it's nice. But that's nice that he can, have a little more free reign, so to speak, in that realm. So
yeah. And yeah, so far I've made it through 7 of the 13 films of that 24-hour marathon, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And they've announced that later this year, Joe Bob will be coming back to do at least one more marathon, if not potentially getting a show of some sort.
Oh, good for him.
So
that seems to be the thing these days.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, yeah, we're just verifying, doing the technical producing stuff. It's been a little while, so I want to make sure everything's working.
Yeah.
So, but that's cool. There's so much content right now. I can't even keep up. Like, I'm trying to think of what we're watching. Like I'm trying to think what we've been doing. I had notes at one point. We were going to do a show, but then we're like, let's just and keep enjoying our vacation. Yeah, DuckTales has been the biggest one for me. They have referenced gummy bears, Darkwing. They have actually shown Darkwing Duck. They have shown Cape Suzette. I think the season finale is going to have Don Carnage from Tailspin. They've referenced Shush. If you're familiar with Darkwing Duck, it was kind of their chaos and controlled, like their Get Smart spoof, like their spoof of the spoof, if you will. And so that show is just great. They have really got some smart writers on there, and it's just a fun show. Trial and Error, and that just started up this week. And if you haven't watched season 1, you really should. It's on Hulu. And John Lithgow was the hapless alleged murderer, and it's a very funny comedy. I can't remember if the Parks and Rec folks are doing it or not. I think I'm thinking of The Good Place on that one. But Trial and Error is one of NBC's, that and The Good Place are two of NBC's top-notch comedies. So
sweet.
If you guys need something to watch, both of those there. We finally watched Rick and Morty Season 3 because it was out on Hulu. Got around to that. Trying to think if there's
I've been rewatching that.
Yeah, I think I might have to do a whole...
why I'm woefully behind on DuckTales.
I might have to do a whole season rewatch on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think. It's really been about it. I think we're going to the Narrow tomorrow night. The Narrow's got a documentary, 3 Identical Strangers.
Yeah.
It's about the triplets that got separated at birth. So I think we're going to check that out, which is Wednesday the 25th, if you're hearing this later.
I am still waiting for the Mr. Rogers documentary.
That's already there.
My Neighbor.
It's there at the Narrow.
No, I just haven't had an opportunity.
No. We watched it at Regal, and it's a good one.
Yeah, I love that show as a kid, so I am dying to see that.
Yeah, it was it didn't get me to cry like the Big Bird documentary. Actually, that reminds me of what we're doing this weekend. But it almost got me at the end. It was good, and the world needs more people like Fred Rogers. I mean, he was just a genuinely good guy who cared about people, and it didn't matter. It was just about the love, and that was his message, and you can't get a better message than that, to be perfectly honest. Right. But this weekend, we're actually going to Raleigh SuperCon because saying Big Bird reminded me. Sarah and I are going to Raleigh SuperCon on Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday, and we've got photo ops lined up. We're going to be hanging out with William Shatner and Henry Winkler for a photo.
Nice.
And we've done Winkler, we've had Winkler's photo before, but, him and Shatner, I mean, what the hell? Why not, right?
Yeah.
We've got Steve Whitmire, who the name might not sound familiar, but he was the Kermit the Frog after Jim Henson passed away.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be kind of cool. Another step for me being closer to Jim Henson. We've met Guy Gilchrist, who was the Henson artist for a while there on the Muppets comics.
Right.
It's just another 1 degree closer. And then Carol Spinney, the 80-year-old puppeteer who, up until recently, did Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. And this man in his 80s was still standing there, for those watching live stream, holding his arm up high and operating that Big Bird head, looking at a little TV and that Big Bird body for 50 years.
Whew.
Or crammed inside a little, confined space so he could do Oscar the Grouch.
Right.
And, it's a lot of talent, and I'm glad I'm getting to see him because, anybody who knows me knows my obsession with anything Henson. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, since you're going to Raleigh SuperCon, and
Yes.
I have not looked at their page in a minute, you might be a little more familiar. Do we have any more Trek folks outside of Shatner? Because I know last year they had Geordie LaForge, one Mr. LeVar Burton, and I was dying to meet him. He's one of the only few... He's one of 3 I still have left to meet of the TNG Bridge crew.
Okay. Did you meet Kate Smith-Fadden when she was here for Tidewater Comic-Con?
Did not. She is one of the other 3.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm down to her, obviously Geordie, and then Michael Dorn.
Okay.
I've not had an opportunity to meet Worf yet, and he's probably the one I'm going to fanboy the hardest. Him or Geordie.
Okay. Well, you missed Gates McFadden. I know some TNG folks are going to be there, but I don't know who, and I was trying to pull it up, and because we haven't used this computer in a long-ass time, everything is dragging, so I apologize. Maybe I'll pull it up while we get to hear the sultry tones of Greg from Local Heroes. How you doing, dude?
It's really sultry, I feel like.
It is, dude. I mean, I could listen to a recording of your voice and I'd be like, you know what? I'm in a better mood now because I heard Greg.
Oh, it's so nice of you. I feel like most people hear it and they're like, why does that guy mumble so much? You're too kind, sir.
How have you been, dude? It's been a while.
It's been 2 weeks and I haven't talked to Pops.
I know.
As a collective, and I'm kind of sad about it.
Well, I'm sorry. It's summer, and Sarah and I have been enjoying our time off and hanging out together. So we might be changing the Popped format a little bit, maybe like once a month kind of thing or something. But we have still been putting up Greg's comic picks every week on popshow.com because Greg has been boss like that and still giving us his reviews. So, have we got a good week this week?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's actually some good stuff this week. Doomsday Clock is back.
Okay.
It's been a couple months since the last issue of that came out. People have been really digging that book from 1 through 5. Number 6 is out tomorrow. It's DC's biggest book right now. Watchmen meets the DC universe, and people can't get enough. So 6 tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that one.
I know you read that book.
Yes,
Keith,
I do.
You're a comic fan.
Yes, I am, and I'm being there every week.
I also read that book.
Nice.
Fantastic work.
It really is good.
Thank you, Travis. The Marvel's got 2 big, actually 3 big books tomorrow. I know I only gave you 2. The first one's X-Men Grand Design from Ed Piskor. The first volume of this came out a few months back. There was 2 oversized issues. The third issue is out tomorrow. This will also be 2 oversized issues, and then the last volume will be 2 more issues. So 6 issues total. Technically, issue 3 tomorrow. This is a really fun book. It's a retelling of the X-Men story from issue 1 to issue 280. So the best years of the X-Men in 6 oversized issues, and it's a really cool X-Men book.
Now, are they going to keep... Okay, so 1 and 2 I really enjoyed, and I was waiting forever for 3. Now, are they going to do this like what? Are they going to do like 3 and 4 and then take another long break again, or what's the plan for this? Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. 2 issues, 2 issues, 2 issues, and then there'll be 3 of the oversized Treasury collections that are really pretty. So.
Okay.
Nice.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I've been enjoying this one. I want it when there's all 6 issues out there. I want all 6 heavy duty all together. So, and I love that style. That Piskor style is great.
It'll be nice when they're all once it's done. You can read it all at once for sure.
Good. Cool. What's the next one?
The next Marvel book tomorrow is Mr. and Mrs. X. Everyone was expecting Colossus and Kitty Pryde to get married last month, and they did not get married. I hate to spoil it for everyone who didn't read that, but Rogue and Gambit did get married. So they have their own comic right now. It comes out tomorrow, Mr. and Mrs. X #1, and people have been waiting for them to get together forever. They're together. They're married. So now their lives will be terrible.
And until one of them makes a deal with Mephisto and gets it wiped from continuity, pissing off all the fanboys.
Yes, that's a good one to look for tomorrow. Also, Infinity Wars Prime, which I forgot to mention, is the start of the Infinity Wars event for Marvel Comics. So the movie was popular, obviously. There's some craziness going on in the comics. If you dug Infinity Wars in the movie, some crazy shit happens tomorrow in the Prime book. So jump on that if you're at all a Marvel Comics fan.
All right, so we got a lot from the big publishers tomorrow then.
Yes, it's a big day for Marvel especially.
Okay, cool. Well, Greg, where can they pick up these fine books tomorrow?
Come get your comics at Local Heroes because we appreciate it more than anyone else, and we love you. And we'll tell you that to your face. Right on Colonial Avenue in Norfolk, Virginia. You can just Google Local Heroes, and it'll be right there in front of your face.
And they will, because I go in there every week, and that's what Greg tells me. It's the first thing he tells me exactly.
I love you.
So how's that job search going? Because I know you guys were looking for a new employee there.
Yeah, hired a new full-time employee. She starts in a week.
Oh,
and then hired another part-time, and she starts this weekend. So
awesome. Some more ladies in there finally.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hate to lose people, but hopefully, new people will step up. We'll see.
I'm sure they will. It's a great place to work. So,
I think so.
I think so too. That's why I'm there every week, and that's why Travis goes there. Travis, how often are you going now?
I'm at least a couple times a month.
Okay.
I'm a little further away down the road,
yeah, it makes it a little more difficult for you.
I usually consolidate my trips a bit, but
makes sense. Cool. Awesome, Greg. Well, it's good to hear you again, and we will talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You too.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Mr. Greg. I mean, I see him every week, but I'm just talking to him on the show, you know. So I was just poking through some of the comments here. Jamar said, hey, Popped. And I was actually hanging out with Jamar earlier today, and him and I were talking about, I think, something what you and Travis are going to talk, or you and Neil are going to, you guys are very interchangeable, I'm sorry. Would you and Neil are going to be talking about a little bit later, that PS4 Pro with the Spider-Man cover on it. We were talking about whether or not, but I'll hold off so you guys can talk about that later, because you guys are going to be talking a lot of video games talks here.
Yes.
Let me see. I'm just doing some behind-the-scenes stuff here, producing. I don't know why everything was running smoothly, and then it's like we decided to start the show, and the computer's like, "Oh, I don't know what we're doing here." I also saw that Bob liked the video as well, and Bob was on our last show we had about a month ago. Bob France and Kevin Cuff. Just want to shoot this reminder out there, and hopefully if Sarah's watching or listening, she can post the link for Metal Shark on the page here. If not, I'll do it in a second once you and Neil are talking.
Yeah.
But Kevin and Bob were on the show about a month ago talking about their Kickstarter for Metal Shark Bro, which is an indie comic, and they have succeeded. I think they're about halfway through, I think, right now. Maybe almost. Actually, no, I think they're 3 weeks in. I think they got about like 10 days left, and they have gotten over half of their goal. I mean, that Kickstarter actually made it one of the projects they loved.
Nice.
So if you guys get a chance, search for Metal Shark Bro on Kickstarter. I'll be posting a link up here shortly, and you guys can contribute to that and help out, indie comic makers. I was also, Travis, trying to pull up here. I know Travis can see it on the screen here, but I know you guys can't. Some of the folks at RaleighCon, at Raleigh SuperCon here. I don't know what is going on here. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, sorry. More behind the scenes issues here. Sorry, guys. I'm not seeing any old school. I'm seeing Walter Koenig. I'm seeing some, Shatner.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some original series stuff, but I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any next generation stuff.
That's okay.
Okay.
I still saw some people there that are definitely interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy was on there.
Yeah, they've got a lot of, and they've also got Dave Bautista, and I think Sean Gunn. Did I see Sean Gunn on there? Yep, there's Sean Gunn. Karen Gillian, always lovely. Amy Jo Johnson, original Pink Ranger.
Yep.
Lou Ferrigno.
I met Lou Ferrigno at Emerald City ComicCon about 6 years back.
Nice.
He is an absolute teddy bear of a giant man.
I can see that. Alice Cooper, John
Hey,
Barron.
Michael Dorn.
Yep, there you go. Oh, there we go. Good catch. I missed that first time around.
See,
so.
now I have to go. I have to meet Worf.
There you go. That's the place to do it at RaleighCon. Awesome. So, without further ado, we have got the Nintenbros on here. Let's see. Let me scoot some things over, and there we are. There you guys are. I've got you up on the screen now. Neil, how's it going, man?
Hello, gentlemen.
Oh, there we go.
Good, man. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. How are things on the West Coast?
Good.
Good?
Hot.
Yeah.
I'm melting right now.
Yeah, it's super humid here, too, so we're with you.
Power through.
Good. Well, try not to melt during the show. I mean, it might make for good video, but probably would really kill me on, trying to fill your time. So, all right. Well, without further ado, I will let you guys take it over. I will chime in when I feel like it, but you boys talk some video games. So, have at it.
Alrighty.
Sweet. Thanks, Keith.
Anytime.
All right, so we were talking a little bit behind the scenes here. Do you want to start off with Comic-Con first and then move on into the video game stuff? Because I feel like we've got a little bit more of that going on. Meat and potatoes.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah, we can jump right into that. So for anyone who doesn't know, Comic-Con San Diego was this past weekend. So being right nearby, I felt compelled to at least stop by. Last year, I went just for Saturday. And I kind of had this weird connection with my future brother-in-law's friend, who happens to be kind of like one of the head event marketing guys for Nintendo. So he is kind of in charge of the Nintendo Gaming Lounge that they put together at the Marriott, which is actually outside of ComicCon itself, and it's open to the public. So last year he invited me down, got to, play around in the gaming lounge, but the only, I guess Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was playable in the gaming lounge, but the real draw was Mario Odyssey, which was only available to play inside the ComicCon doors. But this year they actually brought Smash Brothers Ultimate to the gaming lounge for the public.
Producer chiming in real quick. I finally bought that Rabbids Kingdom thing. See, it took you like 2 minutes, and I'm like, oh no, I need to talk. I finally bought that Rabbids Kingdom game because it was cheap at Best Buy 1 week, and fun game.
Yeah,
not what I was expecting. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. So,
yeah, it's great. It's one of my favorite releases on Switch so far, and I think if the leak hadn't happened ahead of time to kind of give people the heads up that it was coming, there would have been a lot more pushback with the initial reveal. But I think since we had a little bit of a heads up, people really warmed up to it. Like it seemed like this thing that nobody wanted. And then once people played it, I mean, that was a total passion project. And they just released the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC for it. That's really well done as well. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
fantastic game.
It's worth checking out. It looks odd. You would never expect a mashup, but it is a fun. And I've only done like the first few levels. It's going to be a challenging strategy game.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad it's been successful because in my own little heart of hearts, one of my favorite Nintendo series is Advance Wars or Famicom Wars going all the way back. And anything that props up strategy games and gets more of them on the platform is good to me. So I'm hoping maybe that means we get a Switch Wars one day, provided that and Fire Emblem are successful. And Fire Emblem will be.
Absolutely. Yeah, crazy enough, Fire Emblem is like the most, Fire Emblem Heroes is the most successful mobile outing for Nintendo thus far. Which is kind of strange for me because it's always kind of been that underdog title, and Super Mario Run kind of underperformed, and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp as well. But Fire Emblem Heroes is just continuing to rake in the money, and that's their whole idea, is to bring new people, familiarize them with these franchises, and then kind of bring them over for the mainline game on Switch. So I'm thinking this Fire Emblem outing will be much more successful for them than previous ones, even though Awakening on 3DS did fairly well.
Right.
So this year, I got to walk through Comic-Con. I had just kind of like weird family commitments. So I didn't have too much time to spend. And truthfully, the only thing I really wanted to see at Comic-Con this year was Smash Brothers Ultimate. So I was able to walk through the show briefly, didn't really get to see anything, and spent the majority of my time at the Nintendo Gaming Lounge. How
was Smash?
Oh man.
The audience waits with bated breath.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I think there were some problems with the way Nintendo presented it at the E3 Direct.
Mm-hmm.
They just really got into the minutia of what, all the characters bring, that they were bringing back, and all these little details, where I really feel like what they should have done was just had a tournament of like the top players, right, just going at it with the crowd kind of losing their minds. Because as I walked into the gaming lounge, I was actually kind of texting with the guy who was going to get me in there, which I'm very thankful he did. Thank you, Brian. There was like a 2-hour wait just to get into the gaming lounge, and they were kind of, capping the amount of people inside at a certain time. So I got to walk up, and he said, call me when you get here. I won't see the text. It's so loud. So I walked right up, called him, and he was already kind of looking for me. And we walked in, and it was just children screaming. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And I was able to just walk right up and jump into a game with 3 other players. And I probably played like 5 or 6 different rounds with different characters. And they were bringing tournament players, like the teen tournament, which I obviously wouldn't qualify for.
One man
they were
team.
Bringing they were bringing those people in like at 2:00, but I got there at like 11, so they really weren't being pushy, and I kind of was just rotating through in the line to just try different people out, and I loved it. I loved my time with it. It's difficult to convey what's different about it without playing it yourself, but it just feels really smooth. It's obvious that the frame rate's hitting that 60 frames per second. Really smooth, really weighty, super satisfying, and different enough that I'm really excited about it. I was kind of like a little lukewarm on the Wii U version, but after playing it, I'm all in on this title.
Sweet. Yeah, I had both the Wii U version and the 3DS version, and my biggest complaint probably with both of those was how floaty some of the fighters felt whenever you'd take to the air, maybe when you get smashed and then have to try to recover. And I think you were saying in our off-screen conversations that because of the new weightiness, some of that's a little bit quicker, less floaty, less frustrating perhaps to deal with when you're actually
absolutely.
in the heat of it. So.
Yeah, and it's also a lot more difficult to just knock someone off the stage. It kind of takes repeated blows and getting their damage up and then doing a special smash to really knock them off. It seems like there's a little further distance to the edge of the screen. Mm-hmm. So you have this like opportunity for recovery. And then there's all those little tweaks about, if you're kind of spamming block, your block duration gets shortened each time after that. And I, as we were kind of talking in the chat, I haven't played something so frantically in so long that like when I left the station, my right hand was totally cramped up from just like spamming special. Awesome. But I got to try out Link, who for the most part feels entirely the same. Aside from the mechanics that seem to have been adjusted across the board.
Sure.
Other than they removed the hookshot grab, which is kind of big because he had that really far range to kind of shoot the hookshot out, grab someone, and then
yank him in, hit
him over the head with the back of the sword or whatever. So that was gone on Link. Tried out Donkey Kong just because he was like an old main of mine. He felt pretty much the same. Tried out Snake, per your emphatic suggestion.
Yes.
One of the Inklings, which they both play the same, but as the Inkling boy, and then Ridley, who I'm not sure about Ridley yet. He is really slow, really heavy, giant, but he has this really wide range, and then his special is maybe a little bit overpowered. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of his only thing, so I'm sure that balance has been kind of figured out. And when we spoke last time, we were talking about the Inklings, and we were thinking maybe they'll just be a reskin of the Mii characters.
Right.
But I'm happy to say they're an entirely different character, and I could maybe see them becoming one of my mains. Like they have sort of a spammy attack, but I was being I was really successful with it, so I wasn't letting up. Where you're rolling the ink roller across the stage. It's like your special side B, and as you hit a character, you kind of roll over them, and they remain trapped in the ink for a minute, and you're just able to like spam your
basic
punch
attack.
or kick or whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
So is it like when you headbutt as Donkey Kong? Because that's always my favorite move, is headbutting him as Donkey Kong, so they're stuck in the ground. Same kind of thing? All right.
Very similar, but there's less, with Donkey Kong, you kind of have to charge that up, and you have to stay static for a minute. But with this, you're kind of sweeping across the stage really quickly. and then it just traps them and you're able to pummel them. So I found that to be really fun. And it looks gorgeous. And I know that Nintendo like typically saves graphical improvements and tweaks like up to the last month of the development cycle. So to see it looking this good this early on, because we're not going to see it until December 7th, it's a beautiful looking game, and it'll probably end up looking a little better when it ships. So yeah, awesome. I loved it. That's my long-winded rant about how good Smash felt.
Hey man, that's great.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to walk around the floor too much, which is kind of one of my bucket list things I need to do. I do want to get to ComicCon International one of these years. I'll come crash on your couch one day.
Yep, absolutely.
But
invites open.
But there was a fair amount of news that came out of the con, as there routinely is. So my big personal one was finally getting a release date for Batman the Animated Series, the Blu-ray collection.
Yes.
That was my childhood go-to. And actually a lady, because of a Twitter comment I made from the Wall Street Journal, contacted me about how I've memorized Batman Mask of the Phantasm because I've seen that movie so many times. And that's actually going to be getting included along with Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, which was the second feature film from that series, as well as the full run of episodes from seasons 1, 2, and 3, and all of the previous features from the DVD set. So Warner Brothers is going to get another $100+ out of me, and I'll resent them for it until I get home and open it. But yeah, that was a big thing for me. So maybe what was your big takeaway from maybe some news, or was there anything that came out of Comic-Con other than Smash, obviously? That you
did I say Smash?
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything outside of Smash that really got your attention?
Yeah, I'm with you with the Batman animated series. That's probably what I'm the most excited about. This is maybe somewhat blasphemous in the pop world here, but I'm not so huge on the superhero stuff. I'm not like as rabid a fan as say Keith is about all the Marvel movies and
just stay away from Ninja Turtles.
Oh no. I mean the stuff from my childhood, which is like Ninja Turtles, Batman, Spider-Man and X-Men, those all really hit for me still, but
to be fair, I enjoy the MCU movies, but they are not my go-to. If you saw the rest of the Popped Cave, you would see, well, I could ask Travis. I mean, what do you see a lot of? I see Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, and Power Rangers.
Ghostbusters, Blues Brothers.
Yeah, Blues Brothers as well.
Definitely.
Some Parks and Rec.
A little Ron Swanson appreciation.
Yeah. I think the biggest MCU thing in this room is probably my Lego Hulkbuster, which is about to be shadowed by my Lego Voltron, but that's another topic for another day.
I mean, at absolutely no judgment here. I have my own rabid fanaticism, but Batman, that I was introduced to Batman through like the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton movies of the late 80s, early 90s. And then the animated series kind of hit in that perfect, like after school on Fox 4:00 spot.
Yep.
And I absolutely loved it. I've still got a box of all the action figures somewhere. So yeah, the Batman stuff, super excited about. There was kind of some talk like on the subreddit for Comic-Con this year that some people kind of thought this was maybe one of the weaker years over the past few shows. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a ton else that grabbed my attention. I don't know if you saw that they launched the trailer for the return of Star Wars Clone Wars.
I did
animated
see
series.
that. And admittedly, I have not watched all of the Clone Wars. I loved the Genndy Tartakovsky 2D animation that he did for that. And so when they rolled out that show via their kind of super clumsy movie, I kind of just panned it then and never really came back. I'm told I'm wrong. I have been told repeatedly I am very wrong. But it's on the list of things to get to.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you. Like I certainly haven't seen every episode up until, I guess, what are they on now? This will be season 7 that's returning. But the reveal trailer, I wasn't there for it, but the reveal trailer is really cool. It's just one of those hype moments where no one expected it to return, and then they launched this hype trailer, and everyone kind of lost their minds.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's kind of what excites me about Comic-Con, are these big reveals where you've got all these, fellow subterranean nerds surrounding you to just kind of like get lost in the moment with.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I know that Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon did this sort of like drunken, improvised Interstellar panel on Saturday night that was just like totally off the rails, but reportedly one of the best things at the show.
Yeah.
So that was one that I was kind of sad to miss. But last year when I walked around the show floor, for me, some of the coolest stuff to see is the like 1960s comic books, totally minted, that are worth like $120,000. To look at that stuff, that's really cool to see. I'm not so big on like buying, all the little trinkets and fidget spinners and loot boxes of the physical nature.
There's almost always, it seems like every year with, at least with Comic-Con International, like a toy that'll come out of it that I'm just sitting there like, oh, I want that. And it's never like, I got some Funko collector friends that are always dying for those. That's never been my thing. But this year I didn't see like a cool statue or a figure that I was really like, I want that.
I'm trying to think if it was last year or 2 years ago. I wrote up a list. It might have been the past 2 years. Honestly, I'd have to go back to popshow.com and look. But I wrote articles about like the top things I wanted from San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah. I was going to do that for this year, but I didn't see that much that I was really excited about. The closest thing that I really saw that really caught my attention, there were some Funko Exclusives, which, the Conan Funko Exclusives are like some of my favorite pops, but they're also some of the most expensive ones too. Yeah. But they're just so ridiculous and fun. And actually, there's a documentary on Netflix, The Making of Fun, the Funko story. It's worth a watch if you boys like that, the Funko stuff. It's actually really cool to see how they went from bobbleheads to where they are now. But anyways, you guys can't see it. Travis can see it. I think I've talked about them before, but I've got these, probably 14-inch versions of the Ninja Turtles from the first movie.
Right.
They re-released them in an even smaller form for this year's Comic-Con, and they did it in like 150. They did it in a short release. Or like a limited release, excuse me.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of quantity, so those would probably be the only thing I saw that really grabbed my attention from Comic-Con toy-wise.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, usually there's, especially DC Direct. DC Direct usually does a really good job cranking out something from Batman or Superman, the animated series, or the Justice League cartoons, or even Young Justice, which I do want to talk about here in a moment. But there just wasn't much there. Now, kind of going back to the Clone Wars thing, though, for everything I didn't have for that trailer as far as any kind of like vested interest, the DC streaming service that's coming and launching here, I think in about another month and a half, is bringing back Young Justice, which was a show I absolutely adored a few years ago, and they came out with a 5-minute sizzle reel that was absolutely incredible, kind of got us back up to speed on some of the characters, maybe pointed towards a character or two that we thought were gone forever and apparently aren't. But that, and you had the Titans reveal, which was kind of I call him Edgelord Robin at this point, because it seemed like they were hell bent on making sure that Dick Grayson was super angsty and anti-Batman, and I really like what they've got on deck, and the HD remasters of Batman the Animated Series will be debuting on that service at least a month, if not two, ahead of the actual Blu-ray release.
Okay.
So I'm looking at that service as something that I'm probably going to end up subscribing to, because there's a Swamp Thing show coming. There's
nice.
There's another animated series they're going to be doing that I'm really hyped on. And DC's had such a strong animated back catalog over the last 25 years that I've thankfully gotten to grow up with, that I really am looking forward to that. So that was a big thing. And then the Aquaman and Shazam trailers both hit, and oh man.
Shazam, I think DC might actually be fun again.
Yes, there was. And I think Aquaman's got that too. It's a different kind of thing.
It does,
because he's got the gruff, kind of getting a bar fight kind of thing going on.
Yeah,
and that can be fun in a different way. Certainly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and as a sailor myself,
yeah, no, I get that. Oh, geez, why am I so sorry? I apologize for the audio issues there. I was worried about, I love Zachary Levi, but I was worried when he was cast because in my head
he's Chuck.
Well, he's Chuck, but also Shazam / Captain Marvel, because they can't say that now because Marvel beat him to the punch. He's this, and from like you mentioned Young Justice. He is this giant Jim Lee-sized, 90s superhero. So, Zachary Levi is all right, he's kind of, I can see, if Jim from The Office can bulk up, I'm sure Zachary Levi can too.
Sure.
And he did kind of bulk up a little bit, so it looks a little awkward than what I'm used to. But you know what? I will be at Shazam opening night.
Yeah.
With or without Sarah. Because it just
I might need to rewatch that trailer again. I thought the Aquaman trailer was good. They're certainly reinventing the cool factor of that character as far as what I remember.
Yeah, you have to. There's you can't have the orange top and green tights and why hello there, Justice League.
Right.
I'm not getting out of the bathtub.
But even they made the jokes about talking to fish and stuff like that. But
sure.
I think the fact about Shazam, him just it being a kid, I forgot where I read. I think I read it online, but the fact that someone said that Shazam and Billy Batson are like Peter Parker. They're super excited to have these powers. They're excited to be a superhero. They want to do good with them, and it shows in the acting and the characters they've written.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to a fun movie that isn't a gritty Batman kind of series.
Yeah, and
I can see that.
I have some concerns about the direction Titans is apparently pointing.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because over the last 20-25 years, it seems like it's been a really popular thing to break up the Batman-Dick Grayson relationship whenever he goes off to be Nightwing. Yeah. Typically with some sort of tiff over quit treating me like a kid, or, maybe Batman and Barbara Gordon get involved, and then that's a whole wedge, or
there's always some sort of drama that they can find to throw in there.
And the fact is these are two characters, whether people like it or not, he's like the oldest son, in the Bat family, and he's the good son. He took Batman in stride before anybody else ever had to deal with him. Yeah,
he probably even softened Batman up a little bit too.
Yeah, and so this perpetual fascination with breaking up those characters as angrily as possible, so that there's just this years-long resentment, or even just no talking ever again kind of thing.
Yeah,
I'm really tired of it. And it's okay to have some back and forth where Batman is maybe doing what a lot of dads do and kind of talking down to the guy he views as a son. I can deal with that. But the idea that Dick would just be like, the hell with you, and off he goes and just...
Well, here's how I also saw it, too. It's a possible scare tactic, too, from his perspective.
Sure.
You know, if these guys are like, well, where's Batman? You know, Robin's obviously trying to put up possibly trying to put up a front, and there probably is going to be some drama, knowing how DC does, you know, the Nightwing Batman dynamic. But I also saw it as, you know, hey, he's just trying to say, hey, screw Batman, I don't need him. I can do this without you. I am just as BA as Batman, and I'm gonna be. So you guys should be scared of me, not Batman. You know, he's trying to establish himself.
And I could see that. And Jeff Johns has commented saying there's more to it than just the shock value of Batman.
Yeah.
So hopefully
we'll see what happens.
I'm gonna give it a shot because I'm gonna pay for the service. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, was there anything else from ComicCon that you wanted to talk about, or do we want to get into this other stuff?
I think that was about it for me. There was a little reveal of the next season of Archer, Archer 1999, where they're taking Archer to space, which I'm really looking forward to. But I think they've only just now finished like the first episode, so we're still a ways out on that. But I'm a big Archer fan, so that was a cool thing for me.
I just finished up Danger Island this weekend, and I saw that, and I was like, I want to see all the space parodies that they're going to mock on this. Like, they obviously set it up at the end of Danger Island, and they show you kind of the spaceship reveal, and it is very alien. And I like how they were doing it as far as like, well, I won't reveal the end of Danger Island, but you know, at this point in the main timeline, because we're not really sure what they're doing. They're just kind of making this almost like an anthology series at this point.
Right.
In the main storyline from seasons 1 to 7, you know, at the end of season 7, Archer was in a coma. Well, no, excuse me. Into season 6, Archer was in a coma. So then they did Dreamland, which was season 7, and they played on that whole thing being a coma. And then they just randomly did Danger Island. And then the end of Danger Island happens, and it goes immediately into the space thing. So I feel like they're still trying to tie it back in, possibly. What do you think, Neil? Is that what your thoughts are too?
Totally.
Okay. But then they show this spaceship, and I'm like, we're gonna have an alien season, and I'm all about it. And I mean,
I think it's gonna be great.
It doesn't spoil much, but you know, most of them are in a cryo chamber of sorts, and a little sphere runs up to Archer, you know, floats up to Archer's case, and he goes, "Hello, mother," and it's I lost, and that was it. It was credits, and it was beautiful. I can't wait. I'm a little disappointed to hear they only got one episode done though. So
yeah, we're a ways out there, but I'm happy to see that they're moving forward with it. Yeah. Have you guys seen Have you seen Frisky Dingo?
Yes.
No.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Worth a watch, Keith.
Okay.
If you're into Archer, I guess
it's on Hulu.
It's not related at all, but I have always kind of viewed it as like the sort of offshoot prequel to Archer.
Okay.
Totally different universe, but like very similar comedy, animation, voice actors, all that stuff.
It's very much the proto Archer.
Okay.
You see a lot of the stuff that eventually becomes a mainstay in it. And Adult Swim, unfortunately, didn't know what to do with that show and ended up killing it after 2 seasons.
Okay, so Hulu. What's it called again?
Frisky Dingo.
Frisky Dingo.
And the title has nothing to do with the show.
Okay.
On purpose.
I'm okay with that. All right, I'll let you guys
It's just got so much energy, that like absurdist energy that I feel like has sort of like waned a little bit in later seasons of Archer, but it's just packed full of so much nonsense. I absolutely love it.
Okay, I can dig it.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get back to
and then as far as the Comic-Con stuff, I feel like that is about it. I did get to see the like Hot Wheels Mario Kart reveal toys, which, you know, that's not that big a deal, but they do look pretty sweet. I'll probably be picking those up. And then I also they didn't have Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu playable on the floor, but they were allowing you to kind of play around with the like Pokeball Pro controller for the game, which admittedly was pretty cool once I picked it up. It's totally a gimmick, but I'll probably buy it because I'm a sucker. But yeah, that was about it for me.
Keith echoed your sentiments.
I mean, it feels really good. I mean, it looks cool to be holding this Pokeball. It's kind of got that nice, slightly rubberized feel. It's heavy. It feels like it has the HD rumble. There's like a LED ring around the thumbstick that lights up and changes color based on the actions you're performing. And then the one that I picked up had Pikachu inside. So you could actually shake it around and feel the Pokemon bouncing around inside it, and it kind of talks to you. And it's just a sweet Nintendo toy. You know, they've got another $60 from me.
Yeah, I'm still on the wait and see list on the Let's Go game, just because I don't play Pokemon Go. So, like, the appeal of, oh, move your cell phone Pokemon over to your Switch. Well, I don't have any.
Right. Yeah, we kind of we got into it that first week or two. There was a lot of people in our neighborhood walking around playing it, and really enjoyed it, you know, during that kind of like height of popularity time, but then totally fell off it. I've still got my account, but I haven't opened it in months. I'm with you. Like, I'm not sure. I'll probably pick it up. I'm not sure how much I'm going to like it. And there's kind of two camps. There's some serious pushback about the decisions they've made in going forward with this. And I think that would be even stronger if they hadn't announced that there's like a full mainline RPG coming next year.
Right.
But I think it's cool that it's a remake of Yellow. We're going back to Kanto. It kind of feels like it is aimed at our age demo for people who did. I mean, it's both, right? But it's also for those who originally experienced it on the Game Boy. But you know that there's no wild Pokemon battles. I've seen a lot of pushback that your rival is like a friendly rival. He's not some douchey, annoying, like bad guy. He's just one of your friends. So that kind of like makes this rivalry kind of anticlimactic. But I think it looks fun. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, the rival issue was even an issue though in Sun and Moon, because I picked that up. I picked up Sun when it first launched, and that was the first Pokemon, or I guess I had gotten back on the train with X and Y, but being the second Pokemon game that I had even looked at in 10 years at that point, it's like, oh yeah, your rival's your best friend or whatever. It's not really your rival. He's just, hey, it's fun to battle. Well, okay, thanks, friendly guy.
Give me someone to hate.
Like, yeah, I need that.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's fun to have that driver, but then at the same time, my biggest thing with any of the Pokemon games is I hate grinding. I hate getting to the end of the game and having to run around in a cave or whatever and fight every level 50 Zubat ever, trying to grind my Pokemon up to where they can actually take on the Elite Four. And newer games have solved that generally with like the XP share mechanic. But I'm hopeful that what we might see out of the mainline game, at least in another year, is have the trainers that are along your path reset or come challenge you again with higher level Pokemon that they've since, oh, you beat them. Okay, well, hey, I want to come challenge you again. And I've added this to my team and I've done this and that, and kind of give us more of that, since you now have a 32 or 64 gig card to put this game on.
Right.
So that's just kind of my random Pokemon thoughts right now, but
yeah. No, I'll be really curious to see what will carry over from Let's Go to this main line, or if it's just going to be like entirely removed. Either way, though, I really get the feeling that the Let's Go series is going to sell very, very well.
Oh yeah.
It just feels poised to like kind of explode. I mean, everything on Switch right now just seems to be doing exceptionally well. So I don't think it's going to be any different.
It really does.
And it's a Pokemon game. So, I mean,
well, exactly. You've already got that built-in audience, and then Nintendo is just they seem to be working double time to try to push the platform as hard as they can. And it's nice to see that effort, especially after the Wii U was as anemic as it was for so long. And, people like me who did buy it, and I'm sure you and Keith and Sarah, we're all probably a little frustrated sitting there going, God, when are we going to get another game? When are we going to get something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I bought Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, which is just utter trash. But I just bought it because it was a new game. I'm like, well, gotta buy this because it's been 3 months. And, it's so terrible.
Yeah.
It's an abomination. But, yeah. Anyway, I guess that's kind of a decent transition to head over towards the gaming zone, that sweet spot.
Well, sticking with Nintendo, since, like we were saying, they're pushing as hard as they are. It's come out in the last week or so that they want to try to... Oh, we're going... Okay. No, okay. Sorry, technical issues.
What's happening?
No. So they're looking at maybe going to 20 to 30 games per week on the eShop. And that is insanity to me right now. Not because I don't want more good games. Like I said earlier to Keith when we started, I've been playing a lot of retro stuff, and a lot of that retro stuff has been on my Switch. You've got the Neo Geo Arcade Classic series that's out there. A lot of Data East's old games that have been bought up are being released, like Bad Dudes. So I am a bad enough dude to save President Ronnie, apparently, which is awesome, because that is a question every man must answer in their life. You're not complete until you know. But 20 to 30 games per week. That tells me the cell phone ports are probably going to be more prolific than they already are. And that's not necessarily good, because for every one of those we get where the developer actually goes in and mechanically changes things and gets rid of the microtransactions and really puts an honest effort into adapting it to a gaming platform, we get 10 more that are, hey, wait 24 hours to do this, or pay us $5 to do it now.
Right.
And
I mean, remember how bad it got in the Wii era?
Yeah.
I mean, once the Wii had hit, like that 40 million mark or whatever, it was just like, oof, the eShop was just littered with, Ice Cream Cat Quest expansion and Mushroom Jumpman saga.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because even there, for every World of Goo that we got or something good like that, there was a legitimate indie game made with care. 20 more pieces of trash, just like when you went to the store for Wii games. Oh, well, here's a legit game that, here's No More Heroes that's got some cool ideas, maybe some flawed mechanics, but honest effort went into making a cool game. And then, here's 20 pieces of shovelware made by a company you're never going to hear from again.
Right. Data Quest. Or like...
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, they I think it's a terrible idea. Yeah. I would hate for it to kind of kill this momentum of the Switch being this indie darling, to kind of come in and just muck up the waters of the eShop right now. And I know we're kind of talking before, they rolled out some sort of review program that was like almost like a beta, where they were inviting people to, I think it was a star system, and review games on the eShop. And then it got pulled down like 2 weeks later without really any explanation. It was just like, we're reevaluating the service. So hopefully that means that, obviously they're thinking about it, but if that's their plan, there needs to be some sort of, better filtering for discoverability and visibility of like more top tier, high effort offerings. To kind of like, filter out all the undoubtedly shovelware titles that will be heading there with this many hitting the, every week. It's just nuts.
Right. Well, and something I've noticed in the last week or two is that you're seeing legitimately good games that have otherwise maybe been on other platforms before. Hollow Knight, Owlboy, Axiom Verge, stuff like that is absolutely worth the $15 or $20 that's being asked that you pay, because you're getting a full quality experience, are selling at anywhere from 30 to 50% off on a given day, just so they can maintain sales momentum. and
Right.
stay in that top 10 or top 25 of download-only titles or, eShop exclusive titles, or, they've got 2 or 3 lists. But then beyond that, the curation is just completely lacking, and Nintendo really needs to get in there and just overhaul the whole eShop to, like you said, highlight those great games and push the shovelware down, or maybe even get the shovelware out of there, period. Set a new standard that says, look, if it doesn't have these bare minimum things, in it, you don't get to be here. So that maybe some of these cell phone ports stop. I saw a video the other day from a guy I follow on YouTube where he pulled up a backgammon game. And it's basic backgammon, but it's a cell phone version that was released over a year ago on iPhone and Android. And it's absolute garbage. And if you want to play more than 1 or 2 rounds of backgammon, and I don't know how long that normally takes, I've never really played the game, you have to sit there and pay for it.
Crazy.
And it's just like, why is this even being allowed onto the eShop?
Yeah, and that's what worries me about it, is I'd hate to see Nintendo kind of like blinded by this desire of so many developers to have their games on the eShop. Like, oh, let's bring them all over. Everybody wants to be here, when they've classically been so kind of uptight about quality control on their platforms. It's like, hey, it's time for you to step in here and kind of manage this. I'm hoping that will roll out with whatever we're going to see in the online service, the paid subscription online service that rolls out in September. Right. That's got to be part of it. Even then, it's like it's a little late, but I'm really hoping we see something by then. I will say that I've kind of been sad to see like the physical rewards from the Club Nintendo days go away. But I have really enjoyed using my gold My Nintendo points for, redeeming for eShop titles. Like since I'd already purchased Sonic Mania, the Sonic Mania Plus update is like $5.
Right.
And then with my gold points that you can just redeem as you're checking out, I got it for like $3, and it's excellent. And it's really snappy the way you can just, highlight those points and go through. So there's some good things happening, but it's still it's so bare bones. There's no music. There's just kind of that like absence of typical Nintendo charm there, and it just kind of, I could see it turning into this like really quiet wasteland of just these shovelware titles that you need to dig through. And I will say a tell is, if it's like a game that you haven't really seen before and it maybe looks okay, if they're just showing you a like title splash screen as one of the image previews, and there's no videos and there's no other screenshots, stay away, because that seems to be the way those games are getting by.
Well, and that kind of brings me up to like a bigger thing with games in general right now. I started gaming in the 16-bit generation on the Genesis, and my next console after that was the PlayStation. And that was years down the road. I came in on the tail end of the PS1. Even then, you bought magazines back then. You got flyers in the mail. All sorts of stuff, depending on what you may or maybe weren't subscribed to. But they had demo discs, and you had demos for games constantly being put out anywhere from 6 months to a year ahead of release. And here we are in an era where distribution of a demo is easier than it has ever been. And the only game on the Switch, which we'll be talking about here shortly, that I've really seen get a prominent demo, other than maybe Mario Tennis, has been Octopath Traveler, which, because it is such a unique idea and art style and everything, I think Square Enix was quite smart to put a demo out there. But, even then, going back as recently as 2 years, Bethesda rolled out the new Doom game that was essentially rebooting Doom, bringing it back to prominence, bringing it back to its core mechanics. And Bethesda not only embargoed reviews until the day of release or later, but they didn't put a demo up on Steam, on PlayStation, on Xbox, on anything until 6 months after release to generate a second wave of sales. That is ludicrous. And developers need to be held to account on this. At a bare minimum, if you're going to put a game on a shop, you need to have a video so that we can kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with. But, you know, get a demo out there. Give me the first level or the first half a level. Something to get an idea. What am I paying for? I shouldn't have to get on YouTube and go, you know, there was a game I bought on sale just the other day called Slain Back from Hell. And it's an absolutely fantastic 2D 16-bit pixel art side-scroller with some pretty brutal difficulty. Absolutely awesome, but no demo. And the reviews I was finding for it were on YouTube were over a year old and were from the original version of the game, which was simply titled Slain, which released with a number of major game-breaking bugs. And so those reviews reflected that, and I almost didn't buy this game, which was only $5 or $6 because of.
And they fixed that on Switch. They fixed that with the Switch release.
Yeah, they had fixed all of the issues for the Switch release, and they had released a free update to those who had bought it on Steam, on GOG, wherever, to fix it and get it up to that standard as well. So that game had been fixed for nearly 8-9 months, and by the time it was never broken when it got to the Switch. But no one would know that, you know, looking at the reviews that are available, because nobody's gone back and reviewed this later updated version. So you're kind of
I
left
can't understand
wondering.
That's weird about Doom. I didn't know that. I mean, what were they hiding with that? That's such an excellent game. Like, why? I don't.
And that was the question: was what are you doing, Bethesda? You own the biggest shooter in history, probably, or at least one of the most influential at a minimum, and you're just kind of sitting there on your hands, and that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, first party again, you know, they've done a decent job with, you know, they did like the global test fire for Splatoon before release there, and the global test punch for ARMS, and then they had the tournament demo for Aces. But you're right, like outside of them, and then Square Enix with Octopath Traveler, it is pretty light on the demo side.
Yeah, and I don't get it, but you have actually been playing Octopath Traveler. I have not had an opportunity yet. So what are your thoughts?
I'm really enjoying it. Did you see Donkey's review?
Yeah. I found that pretty relatable because I tend to hate grinding. And if that's the case, I might hold off on it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, all his points are totally valid. And I mean, you know what you're getting with Donkey. You know, you're going there for a laugh. You're going for like a really honest and intentionally crass, you know, short take of a game. But he makes some great points. But I was listening to like Kind of Funny Games cast, and Greg Miller was saying it just feels like comfort food. And I just immediately understood what he meant. It's certainly tropey, grindy, maybe even outdated feeling, because they're absolutely referencing, you know, RPG mechanics from the 16-bit and 32-bit era. It's funny that everyone's saying like, oh, this is so like Final Fantasy VI, or this is like a Super Nintendo RPG. But it actually really reminds me of some of the RPGs on the Sega Saturn with the visual style, which is, you know, a soft spot for me.
Yeah.
But what I do enjoy about it is that it's something that I know Nintendo is paying really close attention to with the development of the games that hit Switch, that it kind of works in both a home console, as a home console gaming experience, but then also as like a short burst portable gaming experience. So it is a game that I don't, unless it's a boss fight, which they can totally drag on. Some of the boss fights are like, okay, this is going to be like 20 minutes that I've got to invest in like inventory management and just kind of like intelligently taking this guy out. Everything else you can really do in short bursts. There's save points everywhere. And like some of the voice acting could be cringy to some people, but I think it's really well done. I think the soundtrack's amazing, and I'm just such a sucker for the art style. It is just beautiful to look at, and I am just like, when I sit down with that game after work, I'm just comforted. Like, here we go, and I'm enjoying the aspects that some people might find annoying. Like I'm in like, okay, this boss is like he's a little too strong for me. I've got to go back into that cave and got to do some grinding.
Yeah.
So they're definitely referencing some things that we've like moved on from the past, but I'm realizing that I'm sort of missing some of those elements in modern gaming. So it's like a welcome kind of like retread on some of that. And I think the biggest criticism has been the way the stories kind of intertwine. Like you pick whatever character you want to start with, but then as you're going around the world, you're adding people to your party, but the way you add them to your party is starting the first chapter of their story. And then once you've added people to your party, they kind of don't really interact with the other party members or the story that's happening with them. So in that sense, it does feel kind of disjointed. But it also kind of gives you an opportunity to be like, I don't really care about this shopkeeper, and I'm really going to focus on this warrior guy or this like, intellectual type or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm loving it. It's monopolizing most of my time with Switch right now. So if you're into super tropey, grindy, old school RPGs, absolutely pick it up. If that doesn't sound good to you, I'd stay away.
It tends to be the grinding that gets me. I don't mind the storytelling and stuff like that. Anime and JRPGs tend to be pretty overwrought storytelling wise. I don't mind those narratives so much, but it really is grinding. I didn't like it as a kid, and it's kind of why I always I tended to appreciate stuff more like Shining Force over on the Genesis side, because tactics RPGs typically don't have that grinding factor. Not to say they don't have some, but usually your enemies are scaled to be, reasonably difficult, but not impossible, to where it's, oh god, I gotta go back and do this thing. So actually there is a new Shining game that just came out. Shining, I think it's Shining in Resonance or something like that, but it's more of an action RPG, and I've been keeping an eye on that because I desperately want to support Sega. I'm probably going to hand them another $30 to buy a game that I've already bought, because I want a physical copy of Sonic.
Oh man, I'm so bummed about that.
I know.
Like, because I bought it digitally, and I'm like, you're almost forcing me to buy the Plus with the like reversible Genesis cover and
yeah. Well, and not just that, but one of these days the game's just not going to be there. The store's not going to be there, and all it's going to take is, my Switch got corrupted or whatever. Oh, I can't play it.
Right.
I can live with that. With like something like Slain that I paid $6 for, I can live with that. But when it's something I paid $20-$25 for, and it's a game that I legitimately love, I think I've got 20 plus hours into Sonic Mania over the last year, which other than Zelda is probably the most I've got in any game on the Switch right now. That's a game I want to have.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's one of my favorites on the Switch, and again, it's like it's so cool to me that this is like, well, what if Sonic Extreme for the Saturn like ever came to light? It's very much this like, what would a perfect 32-bit era Sonic game play and look like? I absolutely love it, and I love the Plus edition, like the, what do they call it? It's like the Encore storyline. There's like Mania mode and Encore mode. That's what it is.
Right.
It's really well done, and it almost seems like a little more polished than some of the original Mania content. We've got new characters, and I love it. But man, the physical edition goodies, like even the Sonic statue on the Sega Genesis, and the like Genesis cartridge with the gold ring inside. It's like they did it so well. And
yeah, they had everything except for a physical copy of the game. And if that would have been the only way to buy a physical copy a year ago, I'd have paid them double. I don't care.
Yep.
I wanted that game that badly. And I never buy special editions. I just don't have the room. But that one, I'd have been, take all of my money and never speak of this again.
Yeah. I wish I had your restraint with the physical edition stuff, because I spent like the better part of an afternoon going back to Octopath Traveler. There was definitely some shortages with, especially in Japan. Like they sold through the first 2 shipments almost immediately.
Oh, wow.
Which is great, but Square had to issue an apology for the second round. But I had ordered the special edition on Amazon, and then, came delivery day, I saw that I still didn't have an estimated delivery date. And I'm like, well, it's release day, so this should be showing up. And then just emailed customer service, and they're like, yep, sorry, don't know what happened. We didn't get our shipment in. We were supposed to, but it didn't come through. I'm like, well, great. I could have reserved that elsewhere. And then by the time I looked, it was like this Best Buy that was, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it was like an hour and 15-minute drive north from work, and I already work 40 minutes north. So I'm like, well, I'm going on a little solo road trip today to some town I've never heard of to grab the last copy. But that physical edition is excellent.
Nice.
The pop-up book that comes with it is so cool. It's like you get like all these different level designs that you can kind of scroll through, and it looks exactly like the in-game graphics, because that's basically what you're looking at when you're playing the game.
Right. No.
Anyway, I'm a total sucker. So
yeah, I like special editions. I just don't like paying for them and storing them. And that's why I buy physical. I want to own my games, but the special editions are usually just too big for me to be able to realistically do anything with, living the transient life of a sailor.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's see, what else do we got? You were talking about retro gaming right now.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been doing the same. I had posted a few weeks ago that I had like spent a whole weekend just kind of nerding out on my SNES Classic, and just dumping a ton of ROMs onto there. And I've been playing some cool like Famicom disk system games, familiarizing myself with the like TurboGrafx and PC Engine library, because I hadn't really played many of them, like outside of like Blazing Lasers and Bonk's Adventure.
Right.
But I actually got some Nintendo 64 games to run on it, which felt like a little bit of a triumph. There's definitely some trial and error there because they don't all work. But it just so happens that the site that I got a lot of these from, when I posted it, I got a lot of comments of people saying, where'd you get 1080 from? Like, I haven't been able to find 1080 anywhere. And I was like, oh, I got it from old loveroms.com. And then sure enough, just like 2 weeks later, Love ROMs is getting hit with a fairly massive lawsuit by Nintendo.
Something to the tune of $100 million.
Yeah. That guy's sweating out in Arizona. Right. But he was pretty brazen with what he was doing. Like I'd sent a screenshot to Keith, and they've already kind of made the homepage way more generic. Like when you first went there, it looked like kind of a Super Mario Brothers 3 splash screen, and pretty meticulously put together and like easy to navigate. So they were being pretty open with it. And actually, I think just today, someone else on GitHub is getting hit with a DMCA for a Game Boy Advance emulator. So for whatever reason, Nintendo's always been concerned about piracy, but
right.
It definitely seems like a focus right now. which makes me think it's related to either getting Nintendo 64 games and Game Boy Advance games onto the Switch with whatever this online service ends up being, or potentially another classic system where that is, if this was, Sega's not in the same position, right? Because sharing memes of like, Nintendo shooting the virtual console dead and like, oh, so why are you mad about people burning ROMs? And it's like, that's so reductive and not the full picture, but
right.
Yeah, something's going on there.
Yeah, I tend to think what it's Nintendo. Nintendo's always going to Nintendo, in both good and bad.
Yep.
But their motivation is probably tethered to both the would-be virtual console, whatever form that's going to take. Just because, the idea that somehow we're not going to get old games because, there's no virtual console. We'll get the old games. They're coming.
Right.
Some form or another, Nintendo knows they're going to make money if they bring them. And then, like you said, there's classic systems. We still haven't seen an N64 Classic. We still haven't seen a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance Classic. And I would argue that the Game Boy line of classics, especially if they are portable and they are backlit and they play those games in an ideal fashion, would be able to far and away exceed the sales of anything that they've released up to this point. I was interested in the Super Nintendo Classic because I did not have a Super Nintendo as a kid. I was a Sega kid. But not everybody had that same, like, let me see what the other side of the fence was like.
Right.
Interest that I did. But everybody had a Game Boy or knew somebody who had a Game Boy. At some point in the 90s, if you were a child in the United States, Canada, Japan, or Western Europe, you held a Game Boy in your hands.
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
way or another. And it doesn't matter if you played Tetris for 5 minutes or if you, tore through a Pokemon and, collected all 151 of the originals. One way or another, you interacted with that machine. And, Nintendo's going to protect that because they know they've got the market once they decide what they're going to do to get some of that back out there.
Yeah, I would love to see some form of a Game Boy Classic, whether that's like a original or color or advanced. And that's honestly was the first thing I thought of when I saw the update about them going after this emulator. I was like, oh, maybe something's in the works. But as you said, it's also just probably Nintendo being Nintendo, and maybe coincidentally both of these things are hitting at the same time. But the one thing about the Game Boy Classic that I'm not sure of is just like how the functionality would work and whether or not they would see that as competing with the way the Switch works, because I think ultimately you would want it to be some sort of portable system with a screen that you could then plug into your TV and have a full screen experience at home. But maybe they just would like nerf that option and it would just be a portable device.
Yeah, well, and the biggest issue I see with the idea that maybe it would plug into the TV is that, okay, now you have to put controller ports on it or something.
Right.
Or you have to give us at least a 10-foot HDMI cable.
Please.
Just to...
here's a 1.5-foot HDMI cable. This works for everybody, right?
Yeah. So, one way or another, you're going to have to keep something in the player's hands. And most Game Boy games, with the exception of the ones that support trading and things like that, don't have a multiplayer component that's really worth getting into. Outside of maybe RC Pro-Am and maybe a couple of the Bomberman titles, stuff like that. Yeah. Most of you're not. It's not like an N64 Classic where you're going to sit down and be like, yeah, let's get 3 or 4 people over here and do this thing. The Game Boy's the Game Boy, and it's in your hands, and that's the way a classic needs to be if they're going to do it. And I'm sure it's not if, it's when, but It's making it at a price point too that they're going to be okay with.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to happen fairly soon that we hear whatever, maybe it's a holiday thing, but I would think before too long we'll hear whatever they're planning for the next classic system. I can't imagine they're stopping it. Just going back to the HDMI cord length thing, I picked up an NES Classic on the re-release because I wasn't able to snag one at first, and I just it's just one of those Nintendo things where I can't believe on the re-release that they didn't lengthen those controller cords.
Right.
But to begin with, what the hell? It's like they're trolling us.
Yeah.
There, have fun with this, nerds. Have to stand up next to your TV. At least, for the SNES Classic, they're still too short, but they're not laughably short. I still have to get the extender cable.
Right.
Or one of the 8-bit wireless controllers, which is totally the way to go.
Oh, yeah. SF30 all the way. Works with the Switch.
But it's it's this long. Plug that in your NES Classic. Anyway, I'm sure everyone cares about that, but point of contention for me.
Yeah, well, it's Nintendo being Nintendo, and
yes,
and you love them. I'm actively working on trying to be employed by them in my soon-to-be post-Navy career.
Oh, do tell.
Localization job is up there, so I'm working on that right now. But
awesome.
If I'm able to infiltrate, I feel like I'll be yelling at people, stop the madness.
What 80-year-old man decided this was a good idea, and who agreed with him?
Well, now we know how to annoy Neil. If we ever need Neil to go on a rant, we'll be like, "Hey, Neil, how about those NES Classic cords?" Or we'll get
3 feet.
It's on the same level of giving Miles a bracket without seeds on it. So everyone's got
grinds my gears, Keith.
Exactly. We're all gonna have our own little quirks and things that we're gonna rant on. So no, I get it. All right, as you were, gentlemen.
That's super cool about the localization job. I mean, for me, that's kind of ultimate dream job. I've considered trying to leverage my professional knowledge to head towards IGN and use that as a stepping stone.
Sure.
To head towards Nintendo. I don't think I can, I don't think I can afford to live in San Francisco and with what it seems like they're paying current IGN employees, and there's a mass exodus right now.
Yeah, they're in a rough spot.
Yeah, they're you can tell they're kind of grasping at straws, and that they're doing a lot more of their podcasts in a live format, and they're trying to go after the YouTube audience, and they do a great job with their podcast. But the last time I just went to IGN to browse the site to look through articles, it's just the internet's different now, and they've been really slow to adapt.
Right.
But we're purchasing tickets right now for our honeymoon, and we're heading to Japan, and keep it from my fiance, but that's maybe the main reason I want to head over there. It's I think we can stop by Kyoto and make a little few connections. But
Akihabara, what's
stuff,
that?
but yeah, exactly.
Why would we go there? Oh, classic gaming shop. A whole wall of PC Engine. Oh, Sega Saturn's by the pallet.
Oh God.
You saw the pictures.
Yes. That's the other thing I want to spend my time doing there is
yeah.
God, Japan just got all the cool stuff, and they still have all the cool stuff, and I want it all.
Yeah. Well, the job does say there could be 10% international travel, to which I was like, why, yes, sign me up.
So are you required to know Japanese for the position?
No. Apparently there would be some measure of translation done prior to me having to then scrub and do things. As far as game scripts and stuff like that. So there's dedicated translation staff, which is good. I think Nintendo had to learn some hard lessons about that
right.
Back in the day. But it looks like a really cool opportunity, and hopefully they are willing to at least entertain my resume when it comes flying into their hot little hands pretty quick here.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Don't don't forget us little people when you end up there. Yeah, I was just listening to an episode of Retronauts with like Jeremy Parrish and Bob Mackey, former IGN alum, and I forget who they were talking to, but it was someone who actually landed a job at Nintendo in Japan and didn't know a lick of Japanese, and just kind of was talking about the first 2 months that were an absolute nightmare. It's like, why did I think that this was a good idea? Like, it was so brutal because people just started talking to him,
and he just stood there,
just blank stare. But it obviously ended up working out great for him. So, I mean, yeah, if you have the opportunity, take it. That's rad.
Yeah.
Well, staying on the Nintendo train here, there are a couple. They are at least paying attention to some, fan desires for a few of their games, particularly Mario Tennis Aces, which you haven't played yet, right? You haven't picked that up yet?
No, I've been working on the back catalog enough that I've just kind of held off.
And I totally get that. I would recommend holding off until there's maybe even further updates. The gameplay of Aces is excellent. And obviously that's one of the most important aspects. Like that once you're on the court and you've got an opponent, it feels so good. But the story mode is really kind of lacking and tedious, and there's some weird difficulty spikes. But one of the biggest problems in tournament mode when you're playing people online has been Bowser Jr., who's just been insanely overpowered. There's these like trick shot mechanics if the ball is too far from you and you need to quickly kind of hop to the other side of the court. There's this slow down effect where you can kind of like do a backflip and you end up over there and hit the ball back. And it was like his trick shot was so wide, so fast. And like everything else about him was just, he was like,
he's OP.
He's so OP. Well, he was
overpowered.
So they've actually now nerfed a lot of his abilities. And when I heard, because I kind of been struggling in the online tournament, like I've made it like one away from winning the cup in the tournament.
Sure,
it's just brutal. There's people on there who are, I would imagine, spending the majority of their time with that game.
Yeah, well, mechanically, from what I've read, it seems like Nintendo kind of made it. It's nominally a tennis game, but it plays more like a fighting game once you're in the head-to-head, to where there needs to be legitimate skill if you're planning on actually doing anything.
Absolutely, like the charge shots, the like racket breaking mechanics. It very much plays like a fighting game. But when I heard that they were nerfing Bowser Jr., I was like, I'm going to go play a couple tournaments as Bowser Jr. before they take all this power away.
I'm going to go troll the world.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you have that little window of time when you jump in and they're in your matchmaking, and you can see who your opponent is. And so many times when I get into that matchmaking screen, someone sees me as Bowser Jr., like, oh, disconnect. So it was even getting hard to like play against people because they just don't want to play against you. But I was able to snag one tournament win before they took it all away from him. So that was good. I think people are happy about that. And then we got a small little update to Mario Kart 8, kind of out of the blue. There was like a little news story ahead of time that, expect more updates to Mario Kart 8. And then we got this. Pretty tiny, but they brought Breath of the Wild Link to Mario Kart 8 along with Master Cycle Zero and a couple custom parts that you actually don't need to unlock. So you can just jump right in. It's free. It's now playable. Any excuse to jump back into that game's awesome. It's such a phenomenal title.
Yeah, that was probably one of their smarter decisions, just porting that over, because and fixing the battle mode that like they did.
Yep.
Because the Wii U battle mode was not great, but that game was criminally underplayed, and now it's getting the love it frankly deserved the first go-round. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're still updating it, and then hopefully they're going to throw us a few more bones on that. I'll keep playing it if they'll keep throwing me stuff.
Yeah, I would assume that there's got to be more than just that. But, we'll see.
Now, there was something, there was a Kickstarter, the Go-Go, not a Kickstarter, but it lets you flip the Switch, and I think he's going to helpfully throw up a picture for those watching at home. But it lets you hold the Switch in your hands vertically, so if you're playing something like Punch-Out,
Ikaruga,
or, yes, my beloved Ikaruga, you can play it in the proper vertical orientation now. So I am all over that. I think I threw them $25 or something for a couple of them.
Awesome.
So
I mean that's how you do an Indiegogo, right?
Yeah.
That was actually Jeremy Parrish who put that together. And they brought the prototype out and they're like, hey, we just need to get the injection molding going. Yep. Here's what it is. Here's how it works. Super simple concept, but it looks like it's a high quality build. I'll be snagging one as well. It's just a really cool option to have that further exemplifies the versatility of the Switch. And once you play Ikaruga in that vertical mode, I mean it's really tough to go back to the letterbox edition or whatever you call it.
Yeah. I think my current solution is prop the Switch up and then hold the Joy-Con, use I think I was using my Kindle holder or something that I had from forever ago to hold the Switch up and then sit there with the Joy-Cons and play that way. Mostly because I don't have a swiveling TV thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be just pull my TV out, swivel it, and do the whole thing. But I'm insane and would do that. I know not everybody's gonna go for that. So, but if it means we get more shoot 'em ups, especially the vertical stuff like the Raiden games or something coming to the Switch, then yes, bring this thing on. Let's go. Make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of in a similar vein, it's another little, I guess was it Indiegogo or Kickstarter?
Kickstarter, because they have to. Kickstarter actually has to have a prototype.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's the Satisfy Ultimate Gaming Grip for Switch, and that's Satisfy FYE at the end. But it's really cool. I actually they totally targeted me on YouTube ads.
I saw
but they were using Metal Jesus and the Switch Force guys and a couple other kind of high tier YouTubers who I follow. And they were sent product for free, and I reached out to them just to see on the off chance that I could snag one. But if I don't hear back, I'll just pay for one outright. But it's a really great option for someone like me with fairly big hands.
Right.
I don't have that much difficulty playing in portable mode, but if I'm sinking a couple hours into something on the couch, I will eventually get kind of crampy.
Right.
And it's just a really cool, it's very wide, but it holds the Switch in portable mode and it gives you proper style grips on the side. And the coolest part is the right side grip is asymmetrically kind of tilted out, so you don't have to angle your thumb so awkwardly to hit the lower analog stick on the right side.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for that. I think it's just going to be a thing I'll have around the house, and if I'm just doing my longer couch gaming sessions, I'll throw that thing on there. And
yeah, I've seen it a few times, and I also have the big hand problem. Big handitis is probably the biggest reason I struggle with the Game Boy Advance SP like I do.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. I get more than an hour on that thing, and I'm dying, but playing anyway. When I'm arthritic in 10 years, the doctor's gonna be like, the SP, huh?
It's all the video games.
Yep. But it does look good. I don't know if I'm gonna drop the money on it. I might let you review it for me, and then give it a go. But there was another cool Kickstarter, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to make it, or I don't think it did make it. But a guy sat down and cracked how to make a light gun work on a modern television, and more specifically, how to make Duck Hunt work using original hardware with some light modification, nothing crazy, especially compared to most console mods that you see nowadays. And I think that was the Modern Mallard, and unfortunately, it was about $130. And I think they maybe got. Did they even get halfway to their funding goal? 125K.
I think they maybe got like exactly that.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think it was somewhere around 60,000. Yeah, it's a shame. I think that's a really difficult price point to hit for the novelty of only being able to play Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
And it was solderless, right?
It was. That's why I'm saying it was a simple mod. You had to open up the light gun, and there was a sensor attachment where you would remove the original sensor, but that was plugged in. So you'd remove that, no soldering required, plug the new one in, and then in the actual cartridge, you'd have to open the cartridge, and then you effectively had an adapter that had a new chipset on it. So you would take the original cartridge, insert it into this mini cartridge, and then that mini cartridge would fit where the original had inside the shell, so that when you inserted it into the NES or your top loader or even your Famicom, if you had that laying around, you would have everything you needed between the game and the gun to function properly. And I get why people don't want to drop $130 to play Duck Hunt. I completely understand that. I would like to think that somewhere down the road they'd make Hogan's Alley and some of the other games that used the light gun and used it well available. But then again, do you then need another adapter chipset? Because the gun's the gun. So once the gun's been modified, I would imagine you wouldn't have to do that again. But if you have to modify hardware in every way possible to make these games work, are you going to be charging the cost of a modern game now to get Hogan's Alley working? Like, does anybody have fond enough memories to be like, yeah, that's the game, and nothing against Hogan's Alley. I'm picking on that because that's the only other light gun title that's immediately coming to mind. But I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad somebody cracked it. I just think he needs to be able to find a way to maybe make it work on a platform that was maybe a little bit more prolific in light guns and that's less expensive on the initial entry and works across multiple games. Something like the Saturn or
Sega Saturn.
the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the original Xbox had a number of light gun games. The PlayStation 2, the PlayStation, both of those had a load of light gun games. Absolutely fantastic titles. If I could play House of the Dead all the way through each of those titles and stuff, I'd be all over that thing. But if it's just Duck Hunt, well, it's a little harder sell now.
Yeah, I mean the ingenuity involved in getting this concept to actually work, like it's a marvel. Like I just kind of geeked out on the tech that they were able to make this happen. I think if they were able to somehow, I kind of immediately thought of like the old school Game Genie that notoriously kind of like bent the pins on the toaster loader NES. But if they were able to just create some sort of like modular plug-in where you wouldn't have to open up each cart to make it work, and it was just like something you could plug into and then stick it into your Nintendo, I think that would be like, that would kind of lessen the barrier of entry. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, it's sad that it didn't make it. They didn't get their funding, but I do think this is like the first step into us seeing potentially something else for something like the Saturn or the PlayStation, where hopefully you could just kind of modify the system, the actual console itself once, and then modify your light gun once, and then you're good to go with all the titles that support it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I don't know. I'm hopeful. I hope the guy sticks with it. Maybe the Saturn, especially since you have the cartridge slot there, you'd be able to work something in that way. Other systems are going to be a little trickier, especially the PS1, because they removed the expansion slot after the first wave of systems that was on the back of that. Yeah, I mean, again, I hope he sticks with the tech. We need light guns again. Until VR gets better, light guns are still great. And even when VR is working, light guns are still awesome.
Yeah.
They're just fun, especially if you have something like the GunCon that actually kicked back and had some force feedback and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same tech, but there was quite a few like on rails shooters on the Wii that I actually really enjoyed playing. And that's just kind of gone away now. So I could see it being really popular again if there was some sort of resurgence, either with retro or modern consoles.
Yeah.
What else we got? We were just rambling away here.
I know. Well, we can do some quick hitters because Keith's telling me he's got to go to bed or he's going to turn into a pumpkin. So this East Coast time difference being what it is.
Oh yeah, we've been rolling here.
Yeah, it's pushing 10, boys. So we're hitting that 2-hour limit, and people are going to start tuning out. So
yeah,
cool.
Try to keep it short and sweet so people keep downloading us at Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and iTunes.
Yeah.
And that's my shameless plug while you guys are rambling on. So, I mean, some of the notes you guys had mentioned, I saw some Fortnite stuff, some Spider-Man stuff. I was excited to hear what you guys were going to talk about with the Spider-Man stuff. So, you guys want to hit the Spider-Man and call it a night?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do
that. Yeah, that sounds good. We did get that gorgeous story reveal trailer. It's like a minute and a half. I don't need any more convincing to get this game, but holy crap, it just like every new thing I see about it, like this is amazing. And I'm kind of now like feverishly working through my backlog because I feel like once September hits, it's like
I'm gonna
just gonna be Spider-Man up until Smash for me.
I'm seconding the sentiment, and I actually heard a rumor today. It's a very soft rumor that the collector's edition for the Spider-Man game had a statue for Spider-Man, and he's perched on top of something, and all we see is a black box because they aren't ready to reveal it yet. But there is a rumor out there, take it with a grain of salt, that it's the Avengers Tower, and they're going to start putting together an MCU style, they're going to put, some massive universe of video games around the Marvel superheroes. Have you guys heard anything about this?
That would be interesting.
That sounds amazing.
The issue I think you're going to run into there is the exclusivity right now with Spider-Man being on the Sony platform. That's a boon for Sony, but at the same time, you do have those people who are somehow inexplicably sticking with the Xbox One and only the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to tell them, sorry, you can't have a Spider-Man game,
I'd be okay with this tying into Ultimate Alliance 3, maybe?
That I could see. That would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had an Ultimate Alliance game, and I really enjoyed that game, both of them.
Yeah, those were fantastic, along with the X-Men Legends games that were before those.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic little dungeon crawlers.
And how about that special edition PS4 Pro?
So my buddy Tyler.
I have a PS4 Pro already, but I'm like, hey, that one's red and looks freaking amazing. I could probably get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you got to buy a 4K TV if you don't already have one. Because that's part of the thing is like, all right, PS5 is going to come out in a couple years, right?
Right.
And
you'd assume 4K natively and everything right out of the box.
So the PS4 Pro, it looks gorgeous. I really want it. I don't know if I can justify it, though. I think I'd rather have a second Switch in my household.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yours is totally monopolized by Stardew Valley, right?
Yes, it actually is. And but I
feel partially responsible for that.
Yeah, well, you probably should be. But we saw that trailer for Super Mario Party and how you could put the two Switches together. And we were like...
The screen to screen.
Yeah, you physically put the two together and then travel across from screen to screen. And that just blew our minds. And we're like, that's it. We need a second Switch.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. The more I think about that game, the more excited I am for it. They've kind of abandoned the numbering. This is just Mario Party, and I think they're maybe going to be undoing some of the wrongs that they've done in the past. And when's that hitting? That's October 5th.
October 5th, yep. Yeah, I knew it was early.
I'm really looking forward to that one, and you should totally pick up another Switch.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm getting the Switch bundle when it comes out with that is what my thought is. Not that I've thought about this a lot or anything.
No, clearly not.
No, not at all.
Super quick, wrapping up, just kind of talking about like the PS5 and 4K gaming. That there was a pretty significant update to the Unreal Engine. And if you are interested in any of the specs on that, there's a whole press release you can go dig through. But some of the things that they're talking about are definitely like next gen facing. And there was some really impressive like the Digital Humans project, which is like their facial and skin animation program through Unreal Engine. Just looks insane. Like they're talking about approaching like uncanny valley levels of realism with human characters in game, which I could totally see. I mean, that there's a demo and it's, you can still tell it's computer generated, but it's getting to that point where you're like, is that a human? It looks like it, but there's something off. For anyone who doesn't know, that the uncanny valley is this like drop off in our perception as you're approaching something artificially human, as it approaches closer to what a real human would look like. There's this fine line where it's like, oh, that's a cute robot. That's a cute robot. Oh, what is that? That's an abomination. I don't know why it's making me feel so uneasy. But it kind of got me excited about like, oh yeah, like next gen is probably not too far away at this point. And I think we'll that next bump in graphics, especially with like native 4K, is I think we're in for a treat with some of that.
Yeah, and the Unreal Engine updating like they do over there at Epic is absolutely insane when they're able to make those generational leaps. Typically, you'll even see them roll out a new engine every with a generation. Not always, obviously. But Unreal Engine 4 just getting the love that it has kind of across the board to the point where apparently even Nintendo's talking about using it in some upcoming stuff.
Yoshi.
Instead of their own proprietary work is, that's a big jump for Nintendo. That never happens.
Well, Jamar's got a question. He was chiming in. He said he's asking Pixar quality games with next-gen kind of equipment.
The old the PlayStation 2 promise.
I think we're kind of already seeing that with like the Kingdom Hearts trailer we saw for E3, like where we're getting real close, and I think next gen will be there, which is exciting. Like I'm always like okay with kind of compromising on Nintendo's side of like gameplay over graphics, but that doesn't mean that I'm still like a resolution and frame rate junkie. So I'm really excited to see what next gen's going to look like. And I think a lot of the titles that we're seeing now, like we talked about last show, are going to be kind of bridge titles.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, we have just to wrap things up here. These updates that Epic is making to Unreal Engine, and they actually just kind of rolled out they're taking less of a cut for contributors. That's all thanks to them raking in the money with Fortnite.
Yup.
And I think we maybe have slightly different views on the Fortnite scene, but I've actually been playing it quite a bit.
I played it a little bit more last weekend to give it a more fair shake. Mechanically, once you kind of learn some things, it is a fun game. That I do not deny. And because they give it away free, I don't mind that they have certain monetization things in there. Especially like something like the Season Pass. Where I start having problems with stuff like the Season Pass is like Rocket League, which I paid for. I paid $30 for that game, and now they've announced, oh, well, we're going to do the Rocket Pass. Well, hold on, I already paid you. And not only that, but every box that I earn in your game, I now have to get a key to open it. So until the spring or summer events come around where I can earn those keys freely, I have these boxes just sitting there unopened because I'm not paying you extra money on top of what I already paid you. And Fortnite, being what it is and being as good as it is, means that everybody's going to ape that without necessarily copying what makes it good or okay. And that's where I start having issues, not so much with Fortnite, but just with the way the video game industry likes to copy-paste things regardless of situation.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry.
But yeah, they've made over $1 billion from Fortnite so far, which is just wild. But it's good to see them kind of giving back to the community that helped to get them there in the first place. But I think it also means like this isn't going to last forever, and I don't know when that is. I mean, when something has this like fever pitch of popularity like Fortnite does,
right?
It's going to be the thing that we look back on in, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years. Like, it's like, who's still doing like the Harlem Shake and the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge right now? You know, it's just going to be one of those things where like, yeah, that was cool then. But for now, I'm between Octopath and Fortnite. That's pretty much all I'm doing on my Switch.
Yeah, it's gosh, on my Switch, it's pretty much retro stuff right now. So it's I've got Hollow Knight on deck, just waiting for me, and that's after I finish up Slain, which is just absolutely brutal. I finished the first level finally the other night. There's 4 more to go.
Nice.
It took 2 weeks, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get my $6 worth out of that game. I'm not complaining, but it's absolutely a fantastic game, and I hope they make another one, and yeah, should be great.
Yeah,
but
Keith, I think we did it. I think we kept it under 2 hours by 2 minutes.
By 2 minutes. So I appreciate you guys, gentlemen, hanging out tonight and talking video games. Always a pleasure to hear you guys and have you guys on the show. Neil, we'll start with you. Where can they find you on some social media?
Oh, you can just find me on Instagram at Nintendo Power. Sorry for that groany pun, but Nintendo Power was a big part of my childhood, so
it works.
Hence the reference.
Yes, there's an underscore in there too, isn't there?
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nintendo _Power.
There you go. And I think you're actually tagged in the most recent photo on our Instagram at Pop Show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on the show. Travis, where can they find you and your ramblings?
Find me on Twitter with my random missives at Popped Crawdaddy, and you will also see me on popshow.com, where I occasionally contribute movie reviews, game stuff, and all sorts of stuff. And with this marathon I've been doing, there's a pile of movie stuff coming from me.
All right. So. I like the sound of that. Anything we can do to keep popshow.com populated with all sorts of musings that we've got around here. I am at VA Pianist on Instagram and Twitter. You guys can download the show. If you're watching this on Facebook, you can download the show in podcast form at, let's see here, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, and Podbean. Those are the 4 big ones. If you guys are listening to this in podcast form, you can watch us live. On some Tuesday night, we decided to do a show. We're looking at revising the schedule. We've been enjoying this summer kind of to ourselves. So we enjoy Pop, but we want to kind of enjoy times to ourselves as well. And yeah, so keep it up. Facebook.com/Pop Show as always. Jamar, Bradley, everyone who tuned in tonight. Robert, thanks for tuning in, guys. Neil and Travis, always a pleasure to have you on. And we will be talking to you gentlemen soon.
Woo!
All right.
See you then.
See you later, guys.
Adios.